This is Dick Shetler. It's August 9th. I'm sitting with Linda Bateman, and we're having a little discussion about Strathmere, its history, and some of the events that have transpired over the 25 years that I've been retired here. So Linda, do you have any questions?
If we could start maybe with you and Jane, when you first started coming to Strathmere with Jane.
The house was moved here after the 1962 storm. It was not a hurricane, it was a 3-day northeaster. And it was one of 2 houses that survived in Whale Beach after that storm. And Jane's father moved the house here. And when we retired, we moved to Strathmere year-round. We both became involved in the fire company, the fishing club. I held offices for 10 years in both organizations as a treasurer, and Jane was sort of a personnel management person, kept the records for both the fire company and the fishing club. And Jane also belonged to the CI ambulance squad. She ran with them as well. She was an all-around girl.
And you said her parents had been camping in Whale Beach, or the house had been in Whale Beach?
The house had been in Whale Beach, and her parents had started coming down there in the early 40s. And they camped in tents on the beach and kept their boat right beside their house. They pulled the boat into the ocean and
Really?
went fishing. And when they came in, all the neighbors would come in and they would dole out the fish right out of the boat.
Now, this was the Eisenharts?
This was the Eisenharts, yeah. So this was, Jane's father was Howard, and his brother lived next door. And when they had passed away, and Donna inherited the property.
Donna Diefendorfer.
Donna Diefendorfer inherited the property. And the history in that place, if you talk to Donna, it's when they redid the house, they found out that it had been actually a lumberyard house at one time. It had double sliding doors after they got down to the bare bones of the house.
You mean it had been a lumber yard? Or?
It had been a lumber storage yard house, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
In Strathmere?
In Strathmere, yeah. We had boat yards, which I'm sure you're aware of. And a lot of history in the house.
So when the 62 storm hit your in-laws' house in Whale Beach,
right.
What happened then?
It was moved here.
And did the house get knocked off its pilings, or why couldn't they just stay in Whale Beach?
Oh, well, the federal government at that time put a sand dune in, and if your house or your property was east of the sand dune, between the sand dune and the ocean, you were not allowed to build. You still owned the property. You could pay taxes on it, but you would never be allowed to build. If you were fortunate enough, or unfortunate enough, as the case may be, that the sand dune went through your property, it was condemned and you received compensation for your property, and you could either tear it down and keep the compensation or move it, which he decided to do. The house was moved here.
And his brother offered him the lot?
Brother offered him part of his lot to be built big enough to build on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was you're going back to the 60s without all the EPA and so on and so on reference. And I can remember the house coming up Commonwealth Avenue with a young man sitting on top of it. And as they would come to power lines or whatever, they would raise it with a stick, and they just went under the lines. Today you would need myriads of paperwork to get something like that. Back then it was just, let's get the job done and do it. Yeah, very simple.
So I know you and Jane were both active in the fire company. Can
Yes.
you remember some of the biggies or some of the incredible stories?
The biggies, of course, was the fire on Fallen Lydia Kruger's home. It was a...
And Weavers too, right?
And Weavers, yes. They both burned down to the ground. And it was... Pictures of it really fail to tell this whole story of what it was like. Fortunately, they took pictures of it. They're in the fire company records up there if you want to get a chance to look at them. But it was, we pumped the water tower dry.
The entire water tower?
The entire water tower. Pumped it dry. And Marmora was here, CI was here, probably other fire companies were here. I don't remember it all. I know it was cold.
It was Christmas time, wasn't it?
Christmas time, right? Yeah. Christmas time, yeah. And the problem with fighting the fire was the wind was coming from the west, and we couldn't get to the west side of the properties because that was the bay.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So any of the water that was being sprayed just came back in the firemen's faces. It was just a brutal, brutal night. That was the worst fire we've had. You know, we did have one other serious fire where we thought we were lost, and that was the up at the point. I'm trying to remember the name of the people there. Duns. Do you remember the Dun fire?
Yeah.
Huh?
No, I don't remember the fire. I know where the Duns.
That was before we had moved here. That was a summertime fire, and I can remember that people in town who weren't even firemen were holding hoses and so forth.
And helping.
So the fire company wasn't really that well organized back in those days.
And how about some of the ambulance runs? You must be called out for everything from fish hooks to...
Fish hooks to, the worst one was the ambulance run at the, with the motorcycle, a young man, at the point where we failed to make the turn and hit the guide wire. We've had many serious ambulance runs. Fire company has come a long way. We have rescue vehicles, water vehicle. We have a very, very active fire company. We've been fortunate and able to get some new young men in, trained fireman one. They've been through fireman one class, and it's become a nice active fire company. One of the nice things here in town now is because we're all a volunteer fire company, we have an arrangement with Ocean City Fire Company that in the event we have or asked to turn out for something, they automatically respond with an engine and an ambulance, and all of their men are trained both as firemen and EMTs.
Oh, great.
And in many cases, if it's the middle of the night or something, they arrive on the scene almost about the same time as we do because they're in station.
Right.
Whereas our men had to get dressed, get to the fire company, get to the fire, and then go, It's like a three-prong: get dressed, get your equipment, and get to the site. With them, it's jump on the truck and come. So it really has been good for the citizens in Strathmere.
So how long have you lived here?
26 years. Retired, as I said, in 90 or 91. And why am I still here after I lost my wife of 10 years? I guess it holds too many memories. I have family in the area. My oldest son lives over in Dennis Township, and I see him. My grandchildren are in the area. I just became the proud great-grandparent of a little boy.
Oh,
so I now have 2 great-grandchildren, and I see them a lot. And it's, as long as I'm able to take care of the house, which is becoming more of a burden, I would like to stay here. But I'll be 83 in my next birthday, and I just don't know how much longer I can keep the house and stay here.
So what do you do to keep busy?
Pardon?
What do you do to keep busy?
I read. I've given up golf.
Really?
I can't do it anymore. I'm an avid reader.
And who were your friends in town? You had a lot of fishing buddies and
people. A lot of them have moved away.
Yeah.
Dick Amrod and I are very close. We've fished together, and I would say the boys behind me, the Schwinn brothers. I see them a lot. A couple of times a week we go out to dinner, things of that nature, and the summertime people here are very close. It's a real close knit group. McCormick's and Tom and Karen next door. Donna, I don't see, even though Donna's a year-round person, I see very little of her.
You guys are busy.
She's on the go all the time.
Yeah.
She's a goer. I'm a stay-at-home person.
And didn't you and the Twists have a little, was it a Friday night tradition that you go to Twisties, or?
We used to. Yeah, we used to go when we were younger. When we
Tell
were
me about when you were younger.
when we were younger and we still had young children. I mean, young baby children. Jane's mother was still alive, and she would babysit the children. And our group, I guess there were 8 of us, 10 of us. Friday nights it was to Twisties with $5, and you would come home with change. You'd play shuffleboard, have a few beers, socialize, and you didn't have to drive. You walked there, and if there was a problem at home, we were only a block away.
Yeah.
But those are memories.
Yeah.
Those are memories. And it was, you knew everyone there.
Was that when beer was $1? The bottles were, didn't he only charge $1 a bottle or something?
Beer was maybe 25 cents
Oh, gosh.
for a draft.
And what year would that be about?
Oh, that would have been, our kids were young. That would have been 50 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, 50 years ago. My oldest boy is 56. It could have been maybe 55 years ago, something like that.
And aside from obvious changes in the way building has happened, how do you think town has changed, or do you think it's stayed the same?
I think it's changed totally. Totally. Influx of big homes, which in most cases, if not all cases, are summer homes. As evidence, the one behind me going up over here. The building codes have been changed. Originally there was a height limit that has since gone by the boards, and now it just seems like bigger and bigger and bigger is the name of the game. And the thing that really I feel bad about is the people moving in don't seem to get involved with the town itself. It's like, okay, this is a shore town, it's a vacation town, but they don't, my personal opinion, they don't contribute much to it. They really don't. We've been very fortunate in the people who are year-round residents are very involved, and it seems like at some point in time, all of them have taken a turn at driving the ship. You know, we have the Randy Roches and the Herb Hollingers and the Dick Omrods and people like yourself and Donna and Ed Tedimer. Well, maybe they're all not active at the same time. Over the years, they've been leaders in the town itself. And I think that's what makes Strathmere so unique.
And so getting back to your fishing days, did you always have a boat?
Always had a boat. Always had a boat.
And where's your secret fishing spot?
I can't tell you that. I've since given my boat to my grandson, and he's an avid fisherman. And
did you fish out in the ocean, or did you stick to the
went
bay?
in the ocean, yeah. Yeah, we had a 17-foot whaler, and weather permitting, you know, we would go out in the ocean. You know. He goes out all the time. He's young, fearless. I have too much respect. I had 3 serious incidents
Really?
in the ocean, and I have not gone out since then.
By yourself?
No, I guess the worst one I was with, you remember Joe Wartz?
Yes.
Yeah, Joe, your neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
We were coming in the inlet one time, and he had a 26-foot slick craft.
What kind?
Slick craft
Slick
boat.
craft.
And we hit a bar, and we went over, and I got flung out of the boat, and my leg got caught in the stanchion, and the boat righted itself, and we got in safely, and that was my last trip into the ocean.
Break your leg?
Didn't break my leg, never lost my glasses.
But you went underwater?
Went underwater. Went underwater.
Wow. Jane must not have liked to hear that one.
I didn't like that one myself.
So you mostly catch flounder and stripers, or?
We would, at that time, bluefish were plentiful.
Yeah.
and we would go out for bluefish. I can remember being out one day. We shouldn't have been out there. Joe and I were out there, and it was rough. And we were down in a trough, and I looked up at the wave beside us, and I could see the fish swimming through the wave
No way.
up above our heads.
That's wild.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
And did you, you had lived in Winona before you retired, John?
Yes.
And then have you always lived in South Jersey? Or?
No, when we were married, we lived in Haddonfield, and then while I was still in business, we moved to Montgomery County in Warminster,
Oh.
and
And you went to Gettysburg,
went to Gettysburg. Yeah, went to Gettysburg.
and that's where you met Jane.
That's where I met Jane.
So you were married how many years?
48.
Wow.
48 good years.
Yeah. And I remember when you dedicated the bench to Jane
you
at the
remember that?
playground. Sure.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
still
I think
there.
half the town was there. At
I
least.
think half the town was there. That was a very, very lovely tribute to Jane. I understand now. I don't know what it's this Pokemon or whatever this game is. Jane's bench is one of the one of the locations that they have to find.
I can't decide if she would think that was great or a
I don't either.
total waste of time. I think she'd be tickled she was on the spot. That's funny.
But it's been good. Life has been good to me.
So you were saying before we started filming, in the fishing club you were an officer there?
I was treasurer of the fishing club for 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
And the fire company you were a member for?
I was a member for. I was treasurer there too. I was
Treasurer.
all fire commissioner.
Oh, you were commissioner.
Fire commissioner, for a while. And then with the advent of computerized and state papers and so on and so forth, I said, this was one of the reasons I got out of education. It just became not fun anymore.
Yeah.
I missed teaching a lot, and I liked administration. I missed teaching. I really did. But paperwork was just horrendous, and the requirements. So I said to Jane, I think it's time we go.
You were an elementary school principal?
Elementary school principal.
And then what did you teach when you taught?
When I originally started in 6th grade. It's sort of funny. I had a degree in economics, and I wanted to go into teaching. And Jane's father at that time was on the Woodbury School Board, and he set up an appointment for me with the superintendent. And I met the superintendent, and he said, we don't have many men in elementary education in those days. And he says, what's your degree? I said, in economics. And I'll never forget a gentleman by the name of Don Beineman. He said, I'll hire you, but you have to take at least one course of reading instructions, fundamental elementary reading courses. I said, that's fair for me. So he did. And I went back to school and got my elementary certification. And then I went back later and got my master's degree. But it was funny because my first class of 6th graders was 6 rows of 6 children in a row. 36 11 and 12-year-olds. Never been in a classroom since I left college. 3 sets of twins.
Oh my.
3 sets of twins. 2 sets of identical twins. And 2 girls who I just could not tell apart. Did I have fun?
Well, if you survived that.
I survived. I survived. And then after that, I took a stint at I had a gifted and talented program for 5th and 6th graders. I had them for 2 years. And that was exciting. Mm-hmm. That was exciting. And I found out that I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. I became a facilitator.
Just let them go.
Just let them go. Point them in the right direction and let them go. It wasn't that much, but then I got into administration after that.
I know what I wanted to ask you about, switching back to town. Were you around when the bulkhead was built and the water tower went up?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
The bulkhead went in mainly because of 2 people. Jane's father was one, and another gentleman up at the point, and I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember it. For the life of me, I can't remember
It's
it.
okay.
Bruce would remember it. But they were instrumental. They made, I don't know how many trips to Trenton to get the bulkhead here.
And did the people in town pay for that, or did the state pay for it? How did that work? Do you remember?
I think, correct me on that, I'm not exactly sure, but I think the closer to the bulkhead that you were, is something like the taxes.
Oh, to pay for it.
The more you paid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that. I'm not really sure on that. The state may have paid for, or it might have been matching grants. I'm really not sure.
We'll have to check on that. And were you here when the water tower?
I was here in the water tower.
When you had the tank, was it?
I had a front row seat. I sat on the
You're
porch.
right across from it.
Sat on the seat. I watched these guys, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to get out of this without somebody getting killed.
Building it, you mean?
Building it. They would jump from platform to platform. They would walk on 12-inch wide boards, 40, 50 feet in the air. It was just amazing to see it.
So were you here when the tarp blew off the... What was that?
I wasn't physically here, but
I just picture it like a giant dumpster. What was it that they kept the water in before?
It was you can see a picture of it here. It was just like a standpipe. It was just a straight one in the left-hand corner, I think. You see it in the background?
Oh, up here?
No, here it is.
Or here. Okay.
That was the water tower. And after the top blew off,
I don't know if we can see it or not.
they never replaced it.
No. So the tarp blew off, and then people just were drinking dirty water?
Sure. The pigeons roosted up there. The ducks floated on it. The kids used to have contests to see how many tennis balls they could throw in the water tower.
Did people get sick?
No.
Oh, here's the water tower. So about what year was it, would you say? And this is your house?
Linda, I can't tell you that.
But wasn't the story that they were going to stop?
We were living here year round, so it would have been within the last 25 years or so.
Yeah. And weren't they going to stop with Sea Isle and not give us water? Was that part of the fight, that
No.
they weren't going to put the lines in?
No. That was the sewer lines.
Oh, sewer
That was
lines.
sewer lines. That was thought about one time, connecting the sewer lines to Sea Isle. But Sea Isle doesn't have the capacity.
Right.
I mean, even the north end of Sea Isle is still septic systems. They're not fully on
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they're not fully on the sewer line down there. I think from maybe 20th Street all the way to 1st Street or still septic systems.
And I've seen you drive a fire truck or two in the 4th of July parades.
Yeah. I ride now. I don't drive
ride
anymore.
How come, why do you think it's so popular? I thought this year's parade was almost bigger than
It is.
ever.
It is. I think it's this year we had a large group of veteran motorcycle gentlemen and ladies, and they were a big hit, and they've been asked to come back again, and they were very willing to do it. I understand, and like anything else, people have gotten it, taken it by the horns. It's been publicized, and I think that's why it is.
And so you were in town when the fireworks used to be on the beach?
Yes.
How was that?
Scary.
Why?
Scary, especially if we had an east wind.
Oh, because you were there as a fireman.
We were there as firemen,
Oh, okay.
and we were stationed around town. And after we had one year too many calls of burning embers on roofs, they decided that it was no longer safe to do it.
So you're not blaming it on the birds. Everybody blamed it on the piping plovers.
What's that?
We couldn't have fireworks because it would scare the piping plovers.
No, it's the safety factor. It was the safety factor. Yeah, and our beaches back then were similar to what they're like now.
Oh, they were that big?
They were big. Yeah. Do you recall the Coast Guard Tower when it used to be out on the beach?
No.
No?
Where was that?
That was up at about around Williams and Neptune. We had a huge Coast Guard tower, and that went the way of the world in, I guess, '62. You know?
Yeah. And forgot. I wanted to ask you about the struggle that we have in town. We don't have police.
No.
And we kind of like that we don't have police.
Yes.
Then we sometimes wish that we had police.
Yes.
How do you think that this works? People think we're crazy when we say we don't have police.
Well, not for publication, but our crime rate is nil. And as you know, several of the organizations have banded together, and we hire state police for the weekends to cover our weekends, and I think that's been a godsend for the town. We had some instances of burglary, houses being broken into, but that's pretty much isolated, maybe once every 5 years, once every 7 years.
I've always been impressed, because I'm an outsider after only being here 18 years. I'm impressed by how much neighbors help neighbors, and how...
Oh, absolutely. That's what makes Strathmere Strathmere. You know, there's no doubt about it.
And it's sort of quiet too. You're not always sure.
You're not always,
who that was that helped you out, or
or
dropped off, and that was.
Yeah.
That's kind of a neat thing.
I can remember when Jane was not in good shape, and she had fallen one time, and I couldn't get her up, and of course I picked up the phone. I go, Elizabeth, and this was like 10 o'clock at night. And 2 minutes later, Elizabeth's here in her nightgown and her bathrobe. But that's the way it is.
And you would have done the same for her.
Absolutely, absolutely. And don't forget our fire chief. Bruce is a behind the scenes kind of guy. If you need a favor, you call Bruce. You want something, you call Bruce. And I guess really new in town, Christine and Joe Fury. Joe has sort of taken over taking care of the old folks in the wintertime. We have a snowstorm. Next thing I'll hear scrape, 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 and Joe and the boys are out doing my sidewalks.
I have to get on that list.
Huh?
I have to get on that list.
Yeah, and he does Donna. Ted Bamford before he passed away, and you never know that he's going to be there. He's there. And
I asked you before about who do you think we should also include? Who would we talk to? And you had mentioned the Schwins. And we can't talk to Ted or Al Higginbotham.
No.
Lost them.
No.
We lost Ollie Twist.
We lost Ollie. Talk to Connie.
We still have Connie.
Talk to Connie. Connie knows names. She can give you dates. She's a veritable computer herself.
And Butch and Debbie.
Talk to Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce is second generation.
Mm-hmm.
And Gary. Gary can give you the history of Twisties.
Yeah. And Big Joan.
Yeah.
And Ed Andrus.
Ed Sr. is still here.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's still here or if he's gone back to Florida.
I'll have to check.
Okay. Jane is not in good health. His wife. Yeah.
And then there's all the Kingston crowd up there too.
Yeah.
You were in the beginnings of the citizens group. We all were kind of when that last the first tax upheaval happened.
I was ready to sell my house when I got that first evaluation. I thought, holy cow,
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on? We talked a little bit about schools, the education, the township. Like, what do you think about all of this?
As far as the schools go, I think we have a tremendous school district, Ocean City High School. Even though the teachers are one of the highest paid in the state, I think the results with their placement in secondary education is high. Their graduation rate is high. Their sports program is, top notch in almost every category that they participate in. And I don't know that much about the elementary schools with the middle schools, but I understand they're doing quite well too.
And switching subjects again, getting back to Twisties. So where do you like to eat? What do you think? What's your favorite dish at Mildred's?
Scallops.
Scallops. And were you ever known to be found at the Deauville?
No.
No, you were a Twisties guy.
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything that you would like to see happen in the community? Anything? Any improvements?
I read the Ed Teddemer's letter that he sent out, and I think it was spot on for just about anything that we could imagine happening here or want to happen here to improve the town. I didn't get to attend the meeting, but I thought it sounded like the mayor and the town were on the same page. Hopefully he'll follow through on some of the things that he said he would look into. It's a big job. It's a big job running the township, and especially now with all the paperwork that has to go through and is required. What I would really like to see is some type of financial help for those properties, or at least two of them, that have no bulkheads on the bay. And I'm the recipient of every time we have a high tide of water coming in. This little corner is the lowest spot on the island.
Corner of Tecumseh and Bayview.
Tecumseh and Bayview.
It's the lowest spot on the island?
Lowest spot on the island. Now it's, with the new road on Bayview, it has moved south.
Yeah.
We are no longer the lowest spot.
Oh, okay.
They flood now before we do.
But they're going to be repaved next. That's going to be...
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see the day when people would move their cars toward the beach in the storm, when a storm was coming?
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I had 4 feet of water in my garage.
Did you?
And
from Jonas?
No, from Sandy.
Oh, from Sandy.
Sandy. I had 3 feet from Jonah. And Joe Callahan had dampness.
Yeah.
And Jonah and Sandy were both things from a swell that came up, and it just happened. Boom, it happened. And I think that was the first that Seattle had ever experienced that phenomenon. I mean, ever. And both storms were from the bay.
Right.
Both storms were from the bay. Yeah.
And Stone Harbor and Cape May got hit with that last
all the way down the coast. Yeah.
So if you could start over, if you and Jane were starting over again, what would you do differently? Would you come to Strathmere? Would you go to Florida?
Not Florida. Not Florida. I was a mountain person. My parents were originally from Franklin County in Pennsylvania. They were all farmers.
But you married a girl with
I married a girl from Jersey. And I figured, give it a year or two, we'll be back in the mountains. Well, here it is 60 years later, and I'm still here. I've adapted to the shore. I've come to like it. I still like my mountains, but I would miss the shore. It's grown on me.
Yeah. Well, you're a big walker. You've got a nice routine. You walk to the post office, walk around town, and everybody knows you. You know everybody.
Yeah. I like to walk. Well, I still can. I like to walk. But I've enjoyed living here. I have no regrets. No regrets whatsoever.
That's great.
The only regret I have is I'm not able to share it with Jane. So.